The rain drummed against my apartment window as I stared at my phone, Dad's contact name glowing on the screen. 3 missed calls in the past hour. I let it ring out again, just like I had for the past 2 weeks. It all started on what should have been the happiest day of my life, my college graduation. After 4 years of struggling through engineering school, working 2 part-time jobs to cover expenses, my scholarship didn't, and maintaining a 3.8 GPA, I was finally done. I was the first person in my family to graduate college, and despite everything, I was proud. But as I walked across that stage, looking out into the audience, I saw only Dad's beaming face. The empty seat beside him where Mom should have been sitting felt like a physical wound. I found out later she was at my younger brother Jake's baseball game instead. "It's the championship," she'd said when I called her that morning. "You'll have other graduations." Other graduations, as if I planned to make a career out of collecting degrees. That evening, I drove the 3 hours home, my diploma carefully placed in the passenger seat. I'd planned a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just dinner with my parents. Maybe we'd order pizza and I'd show them the photos from the ceremony. Simple moments I'd been looking forward to for months. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Dad's truck was there, but Mom's car was missing. I used my key to let myself in, calling out as I entered. "Dad, I'm home!" He emerged from the kitchen, still in his work clothes, looking exhausted. "Hey, kiddo. Congratulations again." His smile was genuine, but tired. "Thanks. Where's Mom?" She went out with some friends. Said she needed to unwind after Jake's game." Dad avoided my eyes as he spoke. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "She knew I was coming home tonight." "I know. She'll be back later." Later turned into midnight, then 2 a.m., then dawn. I stayed up waiting, my graduation photos spread across the kitchen table, but Mom never came home that night. The next morning, she walked in at 7 a.m., coffee in hand, acting as if nothing had happened. "Morning, honey," she said, barely glancing at me as she rifled through the mail. "Mom, we were supposed to have dinner last night. To celebrate." She paused, looking genuinely confused. "Celebrate what?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "My graduation. I graduated college yesterday." "Oh, right. Congratulations." She said it the same way she might say, "Nice weather today." Polite but completely detached. I tried to push down the hurt. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she'd forgotten in all the chaos of Jake's game. I thought maybe we could do something today instead. Go to lunch or... "Can't today. I promised Jake I'd take him shopping for new cleats, and then we're meeting the other team parents for dinner. You understand?" I understood perfectly. Jake's needs always came first. Jake's games, Jake's friends, Jake's everything. It had been this way for years, but I'd told myself it was because he was younger. It was because he needed more attention. I'd made excuses for the missed school plays, the forgotten birthdays, the times she'd chosen his soccer practice over my debate tournaments. But this was my college graduation, 4 years of my life, and she couldn't even remember it had happened. I spent that day in my childhood bedroom looking at the walls covered with academic awards and honor roll certificates, achievements that had never seemed to matter much to anyone but Dad. Jake's room across the hall was a shrine to his athletic accomplishments, with trophies and photos covering every surface. The pattern had always been there. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Over the next few weeks, I tried to reconnect with Mom. I'd call her, suggest we grab lunch or see a movie. She was always busy with Jake's schedule, driving him to summer training, organizing team barbecues, planning his upcoming senior year activities. "Maybe next week," she'd say. Next week never came. The breaking point arrived on a sweltering July afternoon. I'd landed my first real job as a junior engineer at a respected firm, and I wanted to share the news in person. I drove home unannounced, bursting with excitement. I found Mom in the kitchen, on the phone with one of the other baseball moms, laughing about something Jake had said during practice. "Mom," I said when she hung up, "I have amazing news." "Hold that thought," she interrupted, her phone buzzing. "It's Jake's coach." She answered immediately, her voice warm and attentive. "Hi, Coach Martinez. How's our superstar doing?" I stood there for 15 minutes while she discussed Jake's batting stance, his college recruitment prospects, and whether he should attend a special summer camp. When she finally hung up, she looked at me as if she'd forgotten I was there. "Sorry, what were you saying?" "I got the job, the engineering position I interviewed for last month. They offered me $65,000 starting salary." "That's nice, dear." She was already looking at her phone again, scrolling through messages. "Jake's coach thinks he might get a full ride to state if he keeps improving." "That's nice, dear." 4 words that summarized 22 years of my relationship with my mother. The final straw came 3 days later. I decided to try one more time, to really talk to her about how I felt. I found her in her home office, working on what looked like a scrapbook. "Mom, can we talk?" "Just a minute. I'm finishing this page for Jake's recruitment portfolio." She held up a photo of him sliding into home plate. "Isn't this perfect? I'm going to get it blown up for his bedroom wall." I glanced around the office. The walls were covered with Jake's photos, news clippings about his games, and certificates from various sports camps. On her desk were 3 different scrapbooks, all dedicated to his achievements. "Where are my photos?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "What photos?" "From my graduation, from when I made Dean's List, from when I won the engineering design competition." Mom looked genuinely puzzled. I'm sure they're around somewhere. Why?" "Do you even know what I studied in college?" She hesitated just a moment too long. "Engineering." "What kind of engineering, Mom?" Another pause. "The regular kind?" I stared at her. 4 years of mechanical engineering, and she thought there was just one regular kind. "Do you know what my GPA was?" "Good enough to graduate," she said with a dismissive wave. "It was March 8th. I graduated summa cum laude." "That's wonderful, dear." But she was already turning back to Jake's scrapbook. Something inside me snapped. "Do you know what my job title is? Where I work? What I do all day?" "You're an engineer. You engineer things." "I design sustainable energy systems. I'm working on a project that could revolutionize solar panel efficiency. I'm 22 years old, and I'm already making a difference in the world." "That's great, honey. Really." She glued another photo into Jake's book. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Jake made varsity captain. Isn't that exciting?" I stood there, watching her paste my brother's picture into yet another shrine to his mediocrity, and I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. She simply didn't care about me. It wasn't that she loved Jake more, it was that she didn't love me at all. The thought should have been devastating. Instead, it was almost liberating. All those years of trying to earn her attention, her approval, her love, I could stop now. "I'm moving to Seattle," I said. "That's nice, dear." She didn't even look up. I found Dad in the garage that evening, working on his old Mustang. He'd been restoring it for as long as I could remember. "Seattle?" he said when I told him about the job transfer I'd requested that afternoon. "That's pretty far." "I need a fresh start." He nodded slowly, understanding more than he said. Dad had always been the one to attend my school events, to help with homework, to remember my achievements, but he'd never directly confronted Mom about her obvious favoritism. "I'll miss you," he said simply. "I'll call you every week." "Good." He handed me a wrench. "Help me with this engine mount?" We worked in comfortable silence until Mom appeared in the garage doorway. "Dinner's ready," she announced. "Jake's favorite, barbecue chicken." Of course it was Jake's favorite. "We'll be right there," Dad said. Mom looked at me with mild interest. "How long are you staying?" "I'm moving out next week." Moving out? For the first time in months, I had her full attention. "Where?" "Seattle. I got a job transfer." Her expression shifted from surprise to something that looked almost like panic. "But you can't move to Seattle. That's across the country." "It's where the company needs me." "What about family dinners? What about holidays?" I stared at her. When was the last time she'd cared whether I was at a family dinner? "Jake will miss you," she added weakly. Jake, who spent most family meals texting his girlfriend and hadn't had a real conversation with me in months. "I'm sure he'll survive." Something in my tone must have alerted her to the depth of my feelings because she actually put down her phone and looked at me directly. "You're upset about something." 22 years, and she was just now noticing. "No, Mom, I'm not upset. I'm done." "Done with what?" "Done pretending this family has room for me in it." Her face flushed. "That's ridiculous. Of course you're part of this family." "When? When have I been part of this family? When you missed my graduation for Jake's baseball game? When you forgot my birthday last year? When you couldn't even remember what I studied in college?" "I didn't forget your birthday." March 15th. You remembered 3 days later when Dad reminded you. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. "I've spent my entire life trying to earn your attention," I continued. "Straight A's, perfect attendance, college scholarships, dean's list. None of it mattered. But Jake hits a ball with a stick, and you throw a parade. Jake needs more support. Sports are competitive, and I didn't need support? You think getting through engineering school was easy? You think landing a job at 22 was handed to me?" Dad had stopped pretending to work on the car and was watching us with a pained expression. "You're being dramatic," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Tell me one thing I accomplished in college. Just one." She was silent. "Tell me the name of my best friend. Tell me what my favorite food is. Tell me one thing about me that isn't written on a diploma or a report card." Still silent. "That's what I thought." I turned to leave the garage, but her voice stopped me. "Wait, I do care about you. I know I haven't always shown it, but Jake's baseball games were more important. Jake's friends were more interesting. Jake's problems needed more attention." I faced her again. "Do you know what it's like to grow up invisible in your own house? You're not invisible. Aren't I? When was the last time you and I did something together? Just the two of us?" She thought for a long moment. "We went shopping for your dorm room supplies." "That was 4 years ago, Mom, and you spent the entire time texting about Jake's summer league schedule." The silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of Dad's radio playing softly in the corner. "Maybe some distance will be good," I said finally. "Maybe you won't even notice I'm gone." "Of course I'll notice. Will you? Or will you be too busy with Jake's senior year activities?" I saw the truth in her face before she could hide it. She was already mentally cataloging all the things she needed to do for Jake's final year of high school. "I'm leaving Sunday," I said. "My stuff will be gone by then." I spent the next week packing my entire life into boxes. 22 years of existence, and it all fit into my Honda Civic with room to spare. Dad helped me carry everything to the car, his face grim but supportive. "You sure about this?" he asked as we loaded the last box. "I'm sure." Jake appeared as I was closing the trunk. He looked genuinely confused about why I was leaving, which somehow made it worse. In his world, everything revolved around him, so my departure didn't compute. "You're really moving to Seattle?" he asked. Really? But what about your stuff? Stuff? That was the depth of our sibling relationship. What stuff, Jake? He shrugged. I don't know. Family stuff. You'll be fine without me. You always have been. Mom came out of the house carrying a small wrapped package. For your new apartment, she said, pressing it into my hands. I unwrapped it to find a generic picture frame with a stock photo still inside. A cheesy image of a sunset with "Follow Your Dreams" written in cursive script. It was the most impersonal gift imaginable, clearly grabbed from the clearance bin at the last minute. But what hurt most was that she thought this token effort would somehow make up for years of indifference. Thank you, I said, because I was tired of fighting. She hugged me then, and for just a moment I allowed myself to hope that maybe she really did care, that maybe this was the start of something different between us. Call me when you get there, she said. I will. But even as I said it, I knew I wouldn't. I called Dad when I reached Seattle, as promised. The city was everything I'd hoped for, clean, modern, full of opportunity. My new apartment was small but mine, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. How's the drive? Dad asked. Long, but good. I'm here now. Good. Your mom wanted me to make sure you call her. I'll call tomorrow. Another lie, but Dad didn't need to know that. She misses you already. I doubted that, but I didn't say so. How's Jake? Excited about senior year. Coach thinks college scouts will be coming to his games. Of course they were. Jake's golden path continued to unfold exactly as Mom had planned. After I hung up, I sat in my empty apartment and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. No one here expected me to compete for attention. No one here compared me to a younger, more athletic sibling. I was just me, and that was enough. The job was challenging and rewarding. My colleagues respected my ideas and valued my contributions. Within a month, I was assigned to lead a small team working on an innovative solar cell design. It was exactly the kind of work I dreamed of doing. I made friends quickly, other young professionals who understood the satisfaction of building something meaningful. We'd grab drinks after work, explore the city on weekends, and have the kinds of deep conversations I'd never been able to have at home. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Dad called every Sunday, as promised. We'd talk for an hour about everything and nothing: his work, my projects, the Mustang restoration, the weather. He never pressured me to call Mom, though he'd occasionally mention that she asked about me. She says she misses talking to you, he said one evening in late August. We never talked before. I'm not sure what she misses. A pause. She's been going through your old school things, found some of your awards and certificates. Now she's interested? I think she's starting to realize things. What things? That maybe she didn't pay enough attention to what you were accomplishing? Too little, too late, but I didn't say that to Dad. September brought Jake's senior football season, and Dad's calls started including more details about Mom's frantic activity as team photographer, booster club organizer, and general manager of Jake's social life. She's driving him crazy, Dad admitted with a chuckle. Yesterday, she tried to schedule a college visit for him, but he wanted to hang out with his girlfriend instead. They had a huge fight. I felt a flicker of sympathy for Jake. He was experiencing the suffocating side of Mom's attention, the pressure that came with being her golden child. How's he handling the college recruitment stuff? Not great. His batting average dropped this season, and some of the scouts stopped coming to games. Mom's taking it harder than he is. I wasn't surprised. Mom had built her identity around Jake's athletic success. If that started crumbling, she'd have to face some uncomfortable truths about where she'd invested her emotional energy. And you? I asked. How are you handling all the chaos? Same as always, trying to keep everyone happy. Dad had spent years managing the family dynamic, smoothing over conflicts, making excuses for Mom's favoritism. I realized now what a burden that must have been. You don't have to keep everyone happy, Dad. You're allowed to have opinions about how things are. I know, it's just complicated. Everything was always complicated when it came to addressing Mom's behavior directly. October brought the first real test of my resolve. Jake was injured during a game. Nothing serious, just a sprained ankle, but Mom called me in a panic. "You need to come home," she said without preamble. "Why?" "Jake is hurt. He needs family support right now." Dad said it was just a sprained ankle. It could end his season early. Do you understand what that means for his college prospects? I understood perfectly. It meant Jake might have to face the same reality I'd lived with my entire life, that his worth wasn't determined by his performance in a game. I'm sorry he's hurt, but I can't come home every time something happens with Jake. Every time? This is the first time I've asked you to come home since you left. And why is that, Mom? Why is Jake's sprained ankle an emergency? But my college? Graduation wasn't worth remembering. Silence. I have a job here. I have responsibilities. I can't drop everything and fly across the country because Jake twisted his ankle. Fine. Her voice turned cold. I should have known you wouldn't care about family when we need you. The accusation was so absurd, it was almost funny. I hadn't cared about family. I'd spent 22 years caring so much about family that I'd nearly lost myself trying to earn a place in it. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and didn't answer when she called back. Dad called an hour later. She told me about your conversation. And Jake's fine. He'll be back to playing in 2 weeks, but your mom is pretty upset. I'm upset too, Dad. I've been upset for 22 years. I know, and I should have said something sooner about about the way things have been. It was the closest Dad had ever come to acknowledging Mom's favoritism directly. Why didn't you? I kept thinking it would get better, that once Jake got older, she'd have more time for you. I didn't want to make waves. Those waves needed to be made. Maybe if someone had called her out years ago, things would be different now. Maybe, but you can't change the past. No, but I can change my future. And my future doesn't include begging for scraps of attention from someone who's never going to see me as worth her time. She does see you. Does she? What's my favorite color, Dad? Blue, navy blue. What about Mom? Does she know? Silence. Does she know I'm allergic to shellfish? Does she know I hate horror movies but love documentaries? Does she know I volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends? I don't know what she knows. I do. She knows nothing about me except that I exist and occasionally accomplish things that make the family look good. That's not love, Dad. That's not even basic parental interest. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't want you to say anything to her. I don't want you to make excuses for her or try to fix this. I just want you to understand why I can't keep pretending everything is normal. I understand, and I think he finally did. November passed quietly. Dad's calls became more subdued as Jake's season ended without the college recruitment he'd hoped for. Mom's grand plans for his athletic scholarship were crumbling, and apparently she was not handling it well. She's been calling college coaches, Dad said during one of our Sunday conversations, trying to get them to reconsider Jake for their programs. How's that going? About like you'd expect. Jake's embarrassed by the whole thing. For the first time, I felt genuinely sorry for my brother. He'd been caught up in Mom's ambitions for so long that he probably didn't know what he actually wanted for himself. What does Jake want to do? He's talking about community college, maybe studying business. He never really loved baseball the way your mom thought he did. And how's Mom taking that news? Not? Well, she keeps insisting he just needs to train harder, that he can still make it if he really commits. The irony was brutal. Mom had spent years pushing Jake toward a dream that was hers, not his, while completely ignoring the child who was naturally driven and academically gifted. She'd created one child who felt pressured to succeed in something he didn't love, and another who'd felt invisible despite excelling at everything she tried. Maybe this will be a wake-up call for her, I said, though I didn't really believe it. Maybe. But we both knew Mom wasn't the type to engage in self-reflection. December brought an unexpected call, not from Dad, but from Jake himself. I almost didn't answer. We'd never been close, and I couldn't imagine what he wanted to discuss. "Hey," he said awkwardly when I picked up. "Hey yourself, how's the ankle?" "Fine, healed up weeks ago." A pause. "Listen, I wanted to ask you something about Mom. This was new territory for us. What about her? Was she always like this, so intense about my stuff?" I considered how to answer. Jake was 18 now, old enough for honesty, but young enough that the truth might hurt. "She's always been very invested in your activities," I said carefully. "But what about when you were my age? Was she the same way about your stuff?" The question surprised me. I'd assumed Jake was completely oblivious to the family dynamics. She wasn't. "Yeah, I figured." He sounded tired. "She's been driving me crazy since the season ended. Everything is about getting me into college baseball, but I don't even want to play in college." "Have you told her that?" "I tried. She said I was just discouraged and that I'd feel differently after I had time to think about it. But I won't. I'm done with baseball." "What do you want to do instead?" "I don't know yet. Maybe study business like Dad suggested, maybe travel for a year, just something that's mine, you know?" I did know. "That sounds smart. The thing is, I think she might be realizing that she messed up with you. She's been asking me questions about you lately, like what you were like in high school, whether you seemed happy, weird stuff." "What do you tell her?" "The truth. That you were always doing cool stuff and winning awards, but she never seemed to notice because she was busy with my games and practices." This was the longest conversation Jake and I had ever had, and possibly the most honest. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "For what?" "For not saying anything. I knew she treated you differently, but I was a selfish kid and it benefited me, so I didn't speak up. That was wrong." An apology I'd never expected to receive. "You were just a kid, Jake. It wasn't your job to manage Mom's behavior." "Maybe not, but I could have been a better brother." "You can still be a better brother." "Yeah, I'd like that." We talked for another hour about everything and nothing. His friends, my job, his college plans, my life in Seattle. It was the first time I'd ever seen Jake as a person, rather than just Mom's golden child, and I liked what I saw. "Will you come home for Christmas?" he asked as we were wrapping up the call. "I don't think so." "Because of Mom?" "Because I'm not ready to pretend everything is fine when it's not." What if things were different? What if she actually tried to make things right? Then we'd see, but I'm not holding my breath. Fair enough. But maybe think about it. It would be cool to actually hang out for once. After we hung up, I found myself reconsidering my Christmas plans. Not because of any sudden desire to see Mom, but because I realized I'd been so focused on avoiding her that I'd been missing out on a potential relationship with Jake and, more importantly, time with Dad. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Christmas came and went quietly. I volunteered at a local shelter, had dinner with colleagues who'd also stayed in the city, and exchanged presents with Dad via mail. It was peaceful and low stress, everything family holidays had never been. Dad called on Christmas morning as expected. "How's your day going?" he asked. "Good. Quiet. How's yours?" "Complicated. Your mom's been pretty emotional about you not being here." "Emotional how?" "Crying mostly. She keeps looking through old photos and talking about things she wishes she'd done differently." I felt a flicker of something. Not sympathy exactly, but not indifference either. What kind of things? "She found your old report cards in a box in the basement. Started reading through all the teacher comments about how bright and thoughtful you were. Then she found the program from your high school graduation, where you were valedictorian. She kept those? Apparently. They were mixed in with a bunch of Jake's stuff, but she kept them. It was a small thing, but somehow meaningful. She'd kept evidence of my achievements, even if she'd never celebrated them. She asked me to give you a message," Dad continued. "What message?" "That she knows she messed up, and that she understands if you can't forgive her, but she wants you to know that she's sorry." An apology delivered through Dad, like everything else in our family. Still not brave enough to face me directly. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think she means it, and I think she's finally starting to understand what she lost. What she lost, not what she'd thrown away. Still not quite taking full responsibility." "I need more time, Dad." "I know. Take all the time you need." January brought a promotion at work and the opportunity to lead a major project that could revolutionize residential solar energy storage. It was the kind of professional breakthrough that should have been celebrated, shared with family, marked as a milestone. Instead, I called Dad and shared the news with him alone. "That's incredible," he said, his pride evident in his voice. "You should be so proud of yourself." "I am." "Your mom would be proud too, if you told her." "Would she? Or would she find a way to make it about Jake somehow?" I think she's changing. This whole college thing with Jake not working out the way she planned, it's forced her to reevaluate some things." "What kind of things?" "She's been reading about parenting, believe it or not. Checked out books from the library about favoritism and family dynamics. I caught her taking notes. This was unexpected. Mom had never been one for self-help books or psychological introspection. What prompted that? Jake, actually. He had a long talk with her after Christmas about how her behavior affected both of you. He was pretty direct about it. So Jake had found his voice after all. Good for him. How did she take it? Better than I expected. She listened instead of getting defensive. Asked him a lot of questions about what it was like growing up in the house. And what did he tell her? The truth. That he felt pressured to be perfect at sports, and that you felt invisible despite being remarkable. That the family dynamic was unhealthy for both of you. I had to give Jake credit. That conversation couldn't have been easy. So what now? Does she expect me to come home and pretend 22 years of neglect never happened because she read a few self-help books? Number. She knows it's not that simple, but she wants to try to do better. Try how? I don't know. Maybe you could give her a chance to tell you herself. The conversation stayed with me for days. Part of me was curious about what Mom might say if we actually talked. But a larger part was protective of the peace I'd found in Seattle, the life I'd built where my worth wasn't constantly questioned. February brought the answer to my internal debate in the form of a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered through the mail. Mom's careful script filled 3 pages with words I'd never expected to read. "Dear," my name. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. Your father says I need to stop asking him to deliver my messages and talk to you directly, so that's what I'm trying to do. I've been doing a lot of reading and thinking since Christmas, and I need to tell you some things that I should have said years ago. First, I'm sorry. Not just sorry that you moved away or that our relationship is strained, but sorry for every birthday I forgot, every achievement I dismissed, every time I made you feel like you didn't matter. You did matter. You always mattered. I just lost sight of that. I think I got so caught up in Jake's activities because they were public and visible and made me feel like a good mother. Your achievements were quieter but more impressive, and I didn't know how to celebrate them properly. That's not an excuse. It's just me trying to understand how I got so far off track. Jake told me things about how you felt growing up that broke my heart. He said you used to ask him why I never came to your academic competitions but never missed his games. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't have a good answer for any of it. I know I can't undo 22 years of being a terrible mother to you. I know you've built a good life without me, and you have every right to keep me out of it. But if there's any chance you'd be willing to let me try to do better, I'd like that opportunity. I found all your old report cards and awards in the basement. I read every single one, and I'm amazed by the person you became despite my failures, not because of my support. You were always extraordinary, and I was too busy looking elsewhere to see it. I love you. I know my actions never showed that, but I do. I always have. I just didn't know how to love you the way you needed to be loved. If you're willing to talk, I'd like to hear about your life in Seattle, your work, your friends, all the things I should have been asking about all along. And if you're not willing, I understand that too. Love, Mom. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the usual deflections and excuses, but they weren't there. For the first time in my life, Mom was taking full responsibility for her failures without trying to justify them or blame external circumstances. It was a start. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I carried the letter around for a week, rereading it at random moments, trying to decide how I felt about this apparent transformation. Finally, I called Dad. Did you know she was writing to me? She mentioned it. Did you get the letter? I got it. What do you think? Is this real, or is she just saying what she thinks I want to hear? I think it's real. She's been different since Jake's talk with her, more reflective, less defensive when I bring up concerns about family dynamics. You've been bringing up concerns? Finally, yes. I told her I was tired of watching my children hurt because I was too afraid to make waves, that if she wanted to fix things with you, she needed to start by honestly examining her own behavior. This was a new side of Dad, more assertive, more willing to confront difficult truths. And how did she respond to that? She listened, really listened. Then she asked me to help her understand what she'd done wrong and how she could do better. What did you tell her? Everything I should have said years ago. That she'd favored Jake in obvious ways, that she'd dismissed your achievements, that she'd made you feel unwanted in your own home. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. I tried to imagine Mom sitting still for that level of criticism. The old Mom would have gotten defensive, made excuses, turned the conversation back to Jake's needs. How do I know this isn't just temporary? That she won't go back to the old patterns as soon as the guilt wears off? You don't know, but maybe that's not the right question. What do you mean? Maybe the question is whether you're willing to give her a chance to prove she's changed, not for her sake, but for yours. What do you mean for my sake? You've spent your whole life carrying anger about how she treated you. That anger was justified, but it's also heavy. Maybe it's time.